Hello, and welcome to another Adult Coloring Tuesday tutorial. I'm your host, Lisa Mitrakin, and today I will reveal some of my own secrets for making a regular coloring page look like a painting. Before we get started, I just want to tell you guys how awesome you are. Our whole adult coloring community, our incredible relationship and interaction, your fantastic requests and questions, and of course your amazing colorings that you post in my Facebook group every day. This channel would not have been possible without you, the colorists, who are always eager to learn and improve. At this point, my video content is 100% subscriber driven, and this episode is no exception. A couple of weeks ago, I got a super fun and unusual request from one of you guys asking me to do a tutorial on how to make a standard line drawing coloring page look like an oil painting or a pastel painting, specifically dealing with white objects in the sunlight. Very specific, very challenging, but very rewarding and absolutely something that you can do with the help of just a few hacks. How could I resist? First, we need an appropriate subject for my demonstration. I want to show you natural and organic white subjects and not just styrofoam cups or ceramic mugs. No, we need something more elegant for this project, something special. Let's go to my garden and look at the white roses that I have there. They're gorgeous when they're playing in the afternoon breeze. It's early summertime here in Chile and everything is in full bloom, so the timing is perfect. What did you notice about these flowers? What makes them appealing to the eye? What makes them interesting and beautiful subjects? How can you tell that they're in the sunlight? And for that matter, how can you even tell that they're white? The trick with any visual art form is that you're never drawing or coloring or painting the object itself or its color. What you need to aim to create is the way that the brain perceives the concept of an object. Our little garden visit probably triggered some emotions. They were probably positive. And you could probably somehow feel that the flowers are very light and airy to the touch and that the petals are probably soft and silky. And you got all that information just from visual cues. So let's try to pinpoint those cues and recreate them on paper. I drew the very same roses for us to practice on. Our biggest setback in line drawing, ironically, will be the lines themselves. In real life, objects don't have outlines. The roses you saw in the garden look real to you because they lack solid lines. When coloring darker objects, the outlines are less of a problem because they get lost in all the pigment. But when your subject is white, those outlines are suddenly very cartoony and unnatural. They break the illusion of realism. So, believe it or not, the first thing we need to do is actually get rid of all the outlines that I spent all this time drawing. However, you still need to be able to see where the subject is and you need to know what to color. So here are some things that we can do to make the lines a little bit lighter, but still visible, so that you can color. Most coloring pages come either already printed in black ink or are available for you to print in black ink if you're getting a PDF. For our first method, we'll go over all the lines of just the white objects in the composition with a white gel pen. If you're working on white paper, this will of course make the outlines nearly impossible to see, but you will still be able to make out where they are through the texture. If you're working on tan tone paper, however, these lines are just as easy to read as black ones would be. This is a good method, but it has some setbacks. It is possible to scratch off the white pigment of the pen with the pencils that you'll be using for coloring. Also, you won't ever completely hide the white lines with the pencils. You're essentially replacing the black outline with a white outline, which is a huge improvement for our purposes, but still doesn't get us that close to realism. So for the second method, we can try white acrylic paint. I prefer this way to the gel pen because with paint, you're not limited to just the outlines. You can already start the white petal coloring while eliminating the outlines at the same time. This way, the transition from the edge of the petal to the body of the petal is seamless. And you can use pencils over it just as easily as you would over clean paper. Again, this method will work on both white and tan paper, but it will be more effective on tan. Also, there are other faster ways to dull these black outlines. You can print them in lighter color, for instance. If you're working with a PDF or a JPEG image, a digital image, and you have the option to print it yourself, set your printer to a lighter setting and experiment with different prints. If you take your files to a printer, you can ask them to make the necessary adjustments. You want a print that's light enough for you to see the lines, but also dark enough to be able to read all the details clearly. And of course, there are other ways of getting lighter prints. If you have access to Photoshop, Illustrator, or any other image editing software, you can change the colors of the lines in your program and then print the image in light gray or light brown or any light color that you choose. You may also play with changing just the color of the objects that you wish to be white and leaving the rest of the outlines black, which is exactly what I did. Since I created this image, I intentionally drew it in separate layers, which I was able to play with individually. So for my print, I kept the frame in black lines while making everything within and popping out of the frame a pale warm gray. And since I know that most of you are not set up to make these digital changes, I put my version of the page in the YouTube Pages album in my Facebook group Tom. So go grab it, print it, and let's color together. I printed my image on tan-toned paper, and I'm starting with white charcoal. A regular white pencil will work just as well, but I prefer this stuff. I feel that I get a cleaner, stronger white pigment with it. I'm working from the edge of the petal to the center of the flower, applying more pigment to the edge and trailing it off at the base. This achieves two things. First, I get a nice soft gradient that automatically establishes the base shadows, and second, the direction of the lines gives the petals a very natural texture. This is such a simple technique, but look how realistic the flowers look already, and we're just getting started. I'm also using a Q-tip to blend the white pigment. This makes the petals look even more silky. And the secondary benefit of the Q-tip blending is that it kind of grinds the pigment into the tooth of the paper just a little bit more, taking away all the powdery residue that you might have had there. This white pigment is now very securely attached to the page and won't smudge or flake off. When coloring white subjects, I like to work systematically. This image is very busy, so I want to establish all the areas that will be white right away. I have two main roses on the top left part of the composition and some secondary roses hanging down on the bottom right. I know that it's a sunny day and that the roses are moving slightly in the breeze. So I also know that the shadows will be soft, not very dramatic, and not necessarily consistent all over because of that breeze movement. And also because the light shines through and over everything, and the petals, it will be kind of patchy. This next step in coloring white subjects is very important. These are my first shadows. Make sure not to use actual gray for these, but rather a light blue or purple. The human eye perceives shadows as lightly blue, and when painting in a more impressionistic style, it's important to exaggerate that illusion a bit. Gray shadows would take us out of this illusion of reality that we're building here and put us back in the realm of illustration. Gray shadows make white flowers look heavy, while blue shadows make them look light and organic. This is one of the reasons that I'm not a huge fan of grayscale coloring. The shadows that are already given to you with grayscale are really difficult to work with when you want to get pure colors. I would not have been able to get this beautiful soft light blue if I already had a layer of gray there. I would have to actually paint over the gray that I have with white paint and then add my blue shadows with pencils. The obligatory gray shadows and grayscale prints alter the tone of your colors, and tone and tint are very important in white subject coloring. This isn't to say that grayscale coloring is bad or that it's impossible to get great color or to make beautiful images with it. Some of my favorite coloring book artists are grayscale artists. And it's certainly a great way to get started with coloring because the shadow placement is already decided for you. But personally, I never actually color grayscale because I like to have complete control over my color saturation and not to have to deal with that gray layer being imposed on me. Observing real-life roses, I noticed that while the shadow color is very soft and bluish, it's not perfectly consistent. It's a little bit patchy. So I'm adding a little bit of lilac here and there in the shadows. Adding just this one new pencil gives me 3 colors in the shadows. My original blue, blue mixed with lilac, and just lilac. I add this color kind of casually, just here and there. Some petals have more lilac, some have more blue. I want that element of randomness there. One of the things that I often see in rose coloring is people over-perfecting the petals. Roses are not perfect. They're kind of messy and disheveled. Now I switch to a darker gray. I know I told you to avoid gray in shadows, but with Prismacolor grays, you have so much blue in the pigment that in this case, it's okay. If you feel that your dark gray pencil is too heavy on the black side, use blue instead, or purple, or even brown. I'm adding my dark color to the parts of the flowers that are the deepest. Notice how this color is obviously darker than my outlines. This is what I want. We want to build up the shape and the structure, and not to be bound by heavy black outlines. And this is the part that will make my flowers look alive, the golden orange colors. The roses have bright orange centers, but I'm also adding the same color all over to suggest golden sunlight. You don't want to overdo this effect though, and you want to avoid solid orange outlines. In fact, you may prefer to switch to watercolor or even acrylic paint at this point. This way you can add soft and subtle suggestions of yellow and orange colors just here and there. Remember that randomness goes a long way when working with flowers and nature in general. That random placement of orange highlights is what will make this look realistic. I stick with pencils though, but I'm applying my pigment very lightly, barely touching the page. Incidentally, if you feel that your blue shadows are too blue, adding orange over them will help tone that down a bit. So now is the time to do it. I like my shadow color, but I'm going to give it even more definition with both light and dark shades of blue, blue-gray, and also purple. Now that the flowers are done, we need to complete the background. For that painting effect, it's really important that you have everything colored. Now, my composition is a bit unusual in that it's a combination of a drawing and a painting, or a want-to-be pretend painting. What I want to convey here is that we're obviously looking at a piece of paper that clearly has a heavily outlined frame drawn on it, but out of that frame grow flowers that are spilling past the frame, out of the page, and onto the real world. Just the flowers are going to be realistic. To make the flowers really pop, I'm coloring the greenery in very dark tones. So dark that I actually start the leaf coloring with dark gray and then add the green here and there. I'm also using ochre, and I'm trying to apply the light in a way that looks scattered because the leaves are moving in the wind. Again, I'm adding blue and purple to the shadows for that realistic effect. Notice that there's very little actual green here, even though if we were to look at a leaf up close in real life, it would be a very bright and very solid green color. But we're not painting what the leaves are. We're painting what we perceive when we look at a whole mess of leaves all hidden behind the flowers there. And that is mostly dark green, blue, purple, and kind of gray, with an occasional splash of yellow light. The darker colors among the leaves suggest depth, thus bringing the white roses even closer to the foreground. And finally, I color the frame. With coloring frames, I like to accent the strong but minor colors in the main composition. In this case, that's the orange of the rose centers. Of course, you can use any color at all and even introduce completely new colors or new textures, for instance with a metallic gel pen. But I like the consistency of echoing an established color. To me, that just brings everything together nicely. This is almost done, but not quite. I want my roses to look like they're popping out of the page. And the way to do that is to establish some shadows on the page underneath the roses. Since my page is tan in color, the shadows end up being kind of brown. A few more highlights here and there on the frame, and I'm done. The roses look light and delicate, they have no obvious outlines on the petals, the shadows are bluish purple, and I established a very nice and believable sense of depth with the green leaves, and also the shadows on the page. Now it's your turn. Follow this link, join the group, find the album called YouTube Pages, download and print this page, and try it out for yourself. Please keep in mind that while I do gift a lot of free pages, all of the same copyright laws apply to all of my images. My copyright means that I created the original image. How I choose to deliver it is my choice. I choose to make this particular one a gift to you, but it's still my artistic property. Please respect my copyright and don't gift, share, or post any of my pages uncolored. If you wish to show an uncolored page, please take care to partially cover it with an object. A pencil, another page, a cat, whatever you have laying around will do. Once you've started coloring a page, feel free to share your work in progress shots anywhere online, and of course, do post your finished colorings in my group. If someone you know also wants to color one of my pages, please don't just give them the page. Instead, send them the link to where they can find it on their own. So, with that bit of business out of the way, I hope to see your white roses shortly. Happy holidays and happy coloring. If you enjoyed this video, do take a moment to give it the thumbs up. subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and color, color, color. I'm Lisa Mitrakin, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!